Hi, I'm Morgan Hines, and I'm in the PhocusWire studio at Phocuswright Europe. I'm here with Mario Gavira of Kiwi.com and Amanda Moore of Preferred Travel Group. Welcome. We're so happy to have you here. Today we're going to talk a little bit about the evolution of travel marketing, which is going to be really fun. I'd love to start if you could both just tell me how your job has changed in the last 2 years.
It has changed exponentially, but I will say in the most exciting ways. Feel like tasks that used to take days or weeks, now we can get done in a matter of hours. And with a high level of accuracy, I think it's made our ability to evolve what we do in digital, our paid media, our emails, how they operate our websites. All of that works on a much faster turnaround time. We're not beholden to your typical development cycles any longer, finding new tools and resources that allow us that speed to market. And like I said, it's a very exciting time for me, in my career, and I just can't wait to see what's next.
Yeah. How about you?
Well, I would say a little bit the same thing. Speed is exponentially accelerating everywhere, and we in Kiwi.com, since we're a tech company, we're obviously trying to leverage all of these new capabilities in a very fast way, and just iterating, testing. So I would say it's a little bit of a roller coaster as well, because sometimes you see all of these new potential threats. At the same time, you try to leverage all of the opportunities that unlock these type of technologies and potential new channels for marketing. So it's exciting times. Yes, I would say.
And would both of you say that AI is driving that change that you're seeing, or are there other technological developments that have really changed things too?
I think a lot of it's AI. The one thing I would add on the comment around speed is that where I spend my time now seems to have shifted.
Okay.
And one thing is that because the space is growing so rapidly, there are a lot of players. And now you have to spend more of your time evaluating those players. Are they the right fit? Do they offer the right capabilities? Can they actually deliver on what they're selling you? And so I think more time is spent there. But again, very exciting time.
Yeah. I mean, it's saying here at the end, we can argue that in a sense, machine learning was already there before, right? And we were leveraging machine learning in a massive way. But the whole, let's say, generative part of AI,
right.
Yes.
And all of these capabilities, and also now how we can automate workflows with agents is something that is mind-blowing, and is a profound change for our business.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So with that in mind, I mean, how much have commercial models changed due to AI?
I mean, for me, I don't know that the commercial model has changed just yet.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say that there has been a massive change yet. The key question is what will happen with the whole agentic AI potential changes, but that's all.
Yeah, because I think, like, I'm interested to see where just everything, your standard path, I'm coming to a website. Yes, there's personalization within the website, but I think the future state is like, there is no there are millions of now individual websites based on that user. My sort order is tailored, my home, like every single piece. I may not even come into a traditional booking path if I know enough about that individual. I might start you further up in the funnel. I think that the way we think about our channels and how they work and operate today are not even 24 months from now are going to look completely different.
Yeah. What do you think, Mario? I know you've had some pretty compelling pieces on similar topics to PhocusWire.
I mean, it's very difficult to predict what will happen, right? And then what I kind of set these 4 scenarios were depending on the trust of basically the AI agents taking autonomous decisions and the disintermediation that can happen. Obviously, the scenarios can be very different, but I would say that in most of the cases, I would expect that this will be a transition that will have gradual steps. And so we are right now already, I would say, in this change where SEO, for instance, is massively changing, right? And that we have to adapt. And, all our content strategy, linking strategy has to change to adapt to the whole new reality. But that's a first step. Now we have to test, will these AI agents really become a new acquisition channel? Will it be only search? Will it be end-to-end transactions? Will people be willing to allow the agent to actually finish a a transaction on behalf of the customer. It's all things we don't know. I think the key for us, or at least how we see it in Kiwi, is we have to be ready for all of the scenarios, right? So we have to put our bets in all of the possible, let's say, opportunities, try to test them, experiment, see if there's some traction. If there is, we scale, otherwise we move on. But the key really is to give as much optionality and potential new channels in the future.
Can I ask one question? I just really would love not to jump in here.
Please.
But one thing that I am curious that I haven't heard many people talk about yet is the role of brand in the future state. And my hypothesis is a bit bullish that brand dies, that there will be so much access to information and it's going to be who I trust the most with that information. But at the end of the day, I'm not going to care too much about this hotel type or that hotel type, because the way I'm going to discover them is going to, in some part, become brand agnostic. And so just curious, like, do you have any thoughts on the future of brand?
I think your vision is a possible reality in the, I would say, 5 to 10 years time period, right? But the question also is, I mean, today these existing powerful brands, and I think more on the distribution side of the business, like Booking.com and so on, they have built some very strong technical capabilities to actually be able to buy the customer intention, but through clicks, through and so on and so forth. And there's a loyalty also, right? There's some loyalty now to these brands, and they have been very strong in obviously developing the Genius programs around the world and so on. So I still think, if you ask me, my most likely bet that somehow the brand will still play a role, because at the end of the day, even in these agentic potential systems where agents can take decisions on behalf of the customer still will give the agent his preference in terms of which are the brands they trust, be it a hotel, be it a distributor, be it somebody else, right?
If brand agnostic tendencies become prevalent, where do you think the trust then lies? With the agent?
I do.
Yeah. It's pretty interesting. But when you think about what's kind of going to come to the forefront, do you think that like OTAs and these big incumbents have kind of an unfair advantage when it comes to the amount of data they have for agents to pull from?
Not even just the amount of data. I mean, I represent a very small group of independent hotels who don't have the marketing resources. I mean, they're never going to be able to compete. So their reliance on that as a distribution channel is obviously not going to go anywhere. So, you know, I still think that OTAs have the tools, resources, subject matter expertise, the teams, just all of those things, the capital, the money to continue to push where other smaller players just can't and won't be able to.
So how do smaller players then market themselves in this space if things are changing in that direction?
Well,
and newer players too, I mean, that don't have that kind of earned credibility.
Well, and what I worry about, because I already see it happening for our independent hotels, is the over-reliance on OTAs as a distribution channel. And so I see that continuing to grow, especially in this environment. And so I don't know that I've quite cracked the nut yet on how to give independent hoteliers some more freedom and flexibility on their distribution strategy, except rate parity. But you know, that's kind of my fear, is that they're going to push the market so much that level of dependency. And I can't remember who was speaking about, but they mentioned that the OTAs kind of become the booking engine that's powering the agents. And so that to me is an interesting kind of concept as well.
So many of them are already partnering with. So then let's think about kind of how you get your name out there. What happens to SEO in this situation? Does it become completely obsolete?
So at the end of the day, I think there's a reality we have to face. SEO, the traditional 10 blue links are not anymore, or will not be there anymore, right? So the organic part of the traffic will probably shrink massively. However, and I think that's where we need to focus on, the AI answer engines will still obviously mention certain providers or certain brands whenever a customer does a prompt for a specific need, right? So the key is how do we become visible in these answers, right? And there is a whole now, what they call GEO or different ways of labeling it. But at the end of the day, it's how can we make sure that the LLMs will pick us and not another brand for that specific prompt, right? And that is a completely new thing. Obviously, SEO, the underlying structure of SEO helps to build that, because obviously the domain authority, the content authority, you have your basically topical domain authority is critical for that, right? Now, will there be traffic? Perhaps much less. But at least your brand needs to be still there. You have to be in the answers of these engines, and at the end of the day, that will be a key focus. It might not be, in a sense, it will become more branding than performance marketing.
Agreed. And one thing, I heard two things here during the conference that I immediately sent to my team. One was PR is back.
100%.
Okay. And the other was personas are back. I think there was a large contingency of people who were like, what do I do with this now? Like, I'm using it for ad targeting, fine, things of that nature. But now that we know who our customer is, we have very specific personas, teaching the model of who we are trying to talk to about our brand and making sure that the content then helps facilitate that, I think is going to be a really interesting piece to this puzzle for sure.
Yeah. So to what degree do you think that there's a place for paid search in agentic interaction? Do you think that will come to fruition?
I think the way we think of paid search is just going to evolve in terms of its definition.
But there has to be some level, right? Eventually, there's going to monetize.
100%.
Yes.
I mean, think about the costs of these LLM models, right?
Yes.
And I mean, obviously Google, for instance, who has now his search machine that is the cash cow of the whole company, they will definitely not basically give away that chunk, right, of revenue. So in a sense, Google has a clear playbook, and they have already said it, right? They have started to put the sponsored links already in AI overviews. They will do it in AI mode as well. So in a sense, the question will be more, as you said, how do you run your campaigns where previously you were targeting keywords. Now you might target personas. You might target the intent of individual users, because obviously also the prompt will give much more intent information as to what you actually are searching for, right? So but I think that in a sense, and here again, my hypothesis is that the OTAs who are strong in search engine marketing today will be able to evolve, because they have the data, they have the capabilities, and they have the data to really evolve with these new changes. Now, then the question is, how will OpenAI do it with ChatGPT and so on? Probably it will be somehow similar. Right now they use Bing apparently, so since they have their Microsoft relationship and so on, at the end of the day, I still think it's going to be search engine marketing, or call it something else, but it will be the biggest performance marketing channel driver for travel. Yeah.
Can we talk a little bit about the data piece? So right now you hear, first party data, you've got to own it, you've got to have it. In a future state, when the model knows more about me, the consumer, than the brand does, the model's not passing that over potential. Like, I'm trying to kind of play out, like, first party data used to be, what I'm collecting on my end, right, free of charge, let's say. But now if I'm so dependent on a model or an agent, am I going to have to then pay for that? Like, is it a new cost that's going to come in to then, for me to continue to build out, who my consumer is, how I reach them, where they are, how do I know them, all the things we do today, leveraging our first party data. I feel like there's this underlying piece where you're going to start to get just huge companies that are going to have all of the information, and you're going to be constantly stuck paying for it.
Because you don't have that baseline.
Yeah.
But I would argue that in a sense, this is not so different from today. Think about it. Google knows more than anybody else about customers.
True.
Meta also has a massive, obviously, understanding of their users, right? So in a sense, what Google and Meta do is, with the knowledge they have of each user, match them to the best bidder on the ad side, right? And today, when we run SEM campaigns, we do know that Google has a better understanding in which search query they have to put our ad, because that user is more likely to convert than another ad, right, from another competitor. So in a sense, I would say that this is more of an evolution again, and that the underlying, now there might be a new player, hopefully, which is good, more competition with OpenAI. At least you don't have the duopoly of Google and Meta, but at least the underlying logic of saying, I know the users, and I will make it monetize them by giving each advertiser the user with the highest intent. That for me will still be working, and even more efficiently with the prompts, because the prompts will give even more information to the platform. Now we will just have to bid for whatever is the most performing keywords or prompts, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I guess we're short on time, so unfortunately we could talk about this forever. But what's your biggest prediction for how the shopping funnel will change related to AI 5 years down the line?
I think it'll be faster. I think that there were reports, like at 75 days and I'm going to 250 sites before I make a booking. I think that is gone. I think things like time on site, I think the speed at which I can get to my decision and get to my booking and how I do that is going to change tremendously than it does today.
Really?
My prediction is that there will be two internets, and there have been some people saying that already. So there will be the human internet and the agentic internet, right? The agentic internet now is starting to be built really with the MCP servers, and there's all of these underlying infrastructure that is being built as we speak, right? And the interesting part will be how much share will that agentic internet, agentic web, take from the human.
Yeah.
But I do believe there will still be human internet, because, and that's something that actually the CEO of Google said in last week on a podcast. People sometimes do want to have the experience themselves, right? Even if they have a personal assistant, AI assistant who can do everything for them, it's like shopping, right? Sometimes you go to Amazon, sometimes you want to go to a shopping mall and go and visit the store and touch the things and so on and so forth. So it's going to be somehow the same thing. You might sometimes use an AI agent for some transactions because you want to do it fast, you don't have time. In other cases, you will want to browse in the internet. And obviously the web might become even more richer in terms of experiences with all of the capabilities on the technological side. So I do believe that there will be these two, let's say, universe or ecosystem that will cohabit, and then the question will be, as a, let's say, a retailer, how do you optimize both of these worlds?
Got it. That's really interesting. Well, I'm excited to see how things unfold. So thank you both for being here, and enjoy the rest of the conference.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. It was a pleasure.